we have done a miserable job teaching young people history. You know, those of us who have lived through it, you know, I went to Israel for the first time in 1980, so a long time ago, and I've been back many times. And obviously, you know, with my husband, you know, deeply involved in all kinds of activities to support Israel and to, you know, try to be as helpful as possible. But it was astonishing to me because I had so many conversations, and frankly, they often started as confrontations with students, not just at Columbia, but elsewhere. Where were they getting their information? They were getting it from social media. They were getting it most particularly from TikTok, which is governed by an algorithm until, at least up till now, still largely manipulated by the Chinese Communist Party. So when you were having conversations with young people, what they were seeing, and because much of the information they get, remember, more than 50% of Americans, predominantly a much bigger percentage among young people, get their news from social media. So when you were having conversations, and I would say something like, you know, if Yasser Arafat had accepted the offer that was made by my husband and the then Israeli government in 2000, there would have been a Palestinian state now for 25 years. And I cannot tell you how many times they said, who's Yasser Arafat? So I think it's more generational than anything else, and it cuts across political, religious, ethnic, racial divides. And sadly, it's not very well informed or historically, rooted. So we live with what people are literally feeling, not knowing, but feeling, that has been, fed by the algorithms in social media.
And they're not even pretending, to such an extent that the prime minister of Israel goes on television to openly participate in, meddle in internal American politics, taking sides, attacking people, Americans. You wouldn't think it would be his business. He's not an American leader. He's not even an American citizen. Going on television to attack Americans because they're not fully on board with sending billions more to a country of 9 million people? And in case you think that's an overstatement, here is the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, commenting on American politics.
We talked about the woke right, and he said, I call it the woke Reich. That's a brilliant observation. The woke Reich, because these people, they're not any different from the woke left. I mean, they're insane. They're Louis. But they're actually meeting on some of the things. We have to fight back. How do we fight back? Our influencers. I think you should also talk to them if you have a chance. To that community, they're very important. And secondly, we're going to have to use the tools of battle. And the most important ones are the social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is
followers.
TikTok, number one. And I hope it goes through because it can be consequential. And the other one, what's the other one that's most important?
X.
X. That's very good. And, so we have to talk to Elon. He's not an enemy. He's a friend. We should talk to him. Now, if we can get those two things, we get a lot, and I could go on other things, but that's not the point right now. We have to fight the fight.
It's almost unbelievable that he said that on camera. Imagine. This is a foreign leader bragging about how he's censoring Americans. Again, this guy runs a country of 9 million people that's totally dependent on our tax dollars to exist. And here he is on camera, and he's a sophisticated guy. Of course, he knows that he's being filmed, saying, anyone who opposes me in the United States, who opposes more aid to Israel or opposes getting sucked into war with Iran, which does not serve American interests, that person is not simply mistaken or wrong. I'm not going to bother to explain why that person is wrong. That person is a Nazi, part of the woke Reich, a Nazi. And the only way to fix it is by preventing Americans in the last country on earth with guaranteed freedom of speech, prevent Americans from hearing the other side. And so we push Congress to force a TikTok sale, which is true, by the way. And when that happened, and various members of Congress were like, no, really, it's about China, there were people online who said, no, I think it's really about Israel. You kind of wish it was about China. Here he is just admitting, no, we pushed the U.S. Congress to censor in the United States, to commit censorship in the United States because we think it's bad for us. And we need to talk to Elon. The only reason we have free speech in the United States right now is because of Elon Musk. By the way, a naturalized American, a foreigner, who looked at the United States and said, what's great about that country? People can say what they believe because they're not slaves, they're not subjects of the state, they're citizens of a nation that they own. Free speech is central to the entire idea of America. In fact, it's really the only thing that sets us apart from any other country on earth. It's not our market economy. It's freedom of speech. And here's this guy, a foreign head of state, who, let me restate, is totally dependent on our tax dollars to exist, is saying Americans don't have that right, and he's going to do some kind of secret pressure campaign on Elon Musk to censor X because it bothers Israel. You know, that's the point at which you just say, no, absolutely not. That is not allowed. But since no one has said that, it has continued. And that's why when you go on social media, you see person after person taking that guy's line, repeating foreign government talking points on social media as Americans. Oh, you can't say that. It's true. It's 100% true. And it's also totally counterproductive, by the way. This is not a sophisticated propaganda campaign. This is a brutal and brutish propaganda campaign where anyone who disagrees with anything is immediately slandered and smeared. Megyn Kelly, who's got to be the single most moderate person on the question of Israel, who said 100 times and means it, by the way, I like Israel. I'm not against Israel. You know, but maybe it's not a great idea to get sucked into one of their wars. We've done that. Let's not do it again. Ah, Nazi! Immediately called her an anti-Semite and won't stop. Meanwhile, the actual anti-Semites, and there certainly are some online, never get criticized by Bibi or anyone else in his orbit. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? I wonder why that is. When you have actual anti-Semites, doing videos making fun of Auschwitz, but they get a pass? Maybe things are not quite as they seem. But normal people who harbor no hate toward anyone or try not to are immediately slandered in a way that makes it, in some cases, hard for them to have jobs if they deviate even a little bit. So what's the effect of this? Not that it's up to me to tell Israel how to run its propaganda campaigns, but the effect, just noticing, is that it turns allies into enemies. You can agree on 98% of things, but if you think maybe it was a bad idea to bomb Doha, Qatar, the site of the largest military base in the Middle East, which exists to protect Israel, if you think it was a bad idea for the Israeli government to bomb Doha, then you're a Nazi? Just in point of fact, by the way, Hamas was originally in Qatar because the Israeli government asked them to accept Hamas. That airbase exists to protect Israel, by the way. That was such a reckless and demented move that Mossad in Israel opposed it and wouldn't participate in it because they thought it was too reckless. So to say that there is, quite a bit of latitude for debate in Israel is an understatement. Mossad refused to participate in that. But as an American, on social media, if you're like, I think it's a little crazy that our ally is bombing another one of our allies without even telling us, and then lying and pretending that they had permission from the president to do this, which they did not. If you say that, you're a Nazi, you're part of the woke Reich, this can't continue. It's too crazy. It's counterproductive for them, and it's deeply destructive of our political conversation and of our country itself.